Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, Diana and the Book Hunt. Today I'm going to be discussing all of the books that I managed to finish in the month of March. It's going to be my March wrap-up. I read 10 books, which is kind of below my average that I read in a month, but I do have to say that the last two books that I read in the month were quite chunky. There were 600 plus pages, so yeah, I'm quite proud of myself that I managed to finish both of them in 1 month. And I did have some really interesting and very fun reads, so I can't wait to share them with you. I really do hope that you'll be able to pick up some books off of the recommendations that I'm going to be making, because they're definitely worth it. So without further ado, let's just dive in. The first book that I picked up in the month of March is Baking Me Crazy by Karla Sorensen. Let me tell you why I picked up this book. I had just read The Heart Principle by Helen Huang, and it was quite a bit heavier than I expected, and I really wanted something more fun and lighthearted. And I saw that Karla Sorensen has quite a few books off of her backlist in my audio library. I am familiar with her work and I tend to enjoy it, so I decided to pick it up because the title Baking Me Crazy kind of sounded like something that's going to be really fun and involving food, and yeah, I really was interested in picking it up. The book is about Joss, who I believe because of an infection that she got when she was a teenager, that infection impacted her mobility and she's in a wheelchair. And her best friend Levi, he's at the center of this book. He's the love interest, so we have a classic friends to lovers story, and we also have a pining hero because Levi has been in love with Joss ever since he met her. So that aspect of the book is just right up my alley. I absolutely love those types of stories. And I think I gave this book about 3.5 to 4 stars on Goodreads, if I'm not mistaken. I did really enjoy those aspects of the book, the friends to lovers and the pining hero. I did love the representation within the book, so that's definitely worth considering when you pick up this book, to just pick up a book which has a great representation. However, there's only one slight detail that kind of irked me, and that's the fact that the book is called Baking Me Crazy, so I really expected to have a lot of food related stuff within the book. And while we do have the aspect that Joss starts working at a bakery because she loves to bake, we don't get too much involvement regarding the baking or regarding her passion for it. So that's my only kind of critique about the book. But it was definitely worth the read. I do recommend it, so go ahead and pick it up. Don't ask me why I picked up the next book that I read. It's V.E. Schwab's Gallant, which is her latest release. It's a young adult story, and I had never read a V.E. Schwab book before. I've heard quite a bit about her writing and also about the books that she has written, and I do have some plans to read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue in the future. I just need to get in the mood for it. But I was like, it just recently came out on audio, and I thought, why not? Let me just try one of her books out, because I have never picked up any of her books. But I was not really a fan. I kind of struggled to get through it. It's about a girl who is an orphan. She lives in this home for children. She's in her teens and she doesn't speak. She gets bullied a lot by the girls who are living in this children's home. And she believes that she gets the best possible break when she receives a letter from a long lost uncle who invites her to his estate, which is called Gallant. And she believes that she's basically saved from this hell that she's living in, but nothing is as it seems, because when she arrives at Gallant, there's a lot of things that are strange and a bit peculiar and not very savvy. So there is a bit of a mystery surrounding the whole situation with the estate, as well as the uncle, as well as her mother. So there is that aspect which is quite interesting and intriguing, but I really struggled to get through it. It was a bit boring at times, and I did predict what was going to happen throughout the book, so that kind of left me feeling a bit underwhelmed. So I give it 3 stars. I don't specifically recommend it unless you really like young adult fantasy books which are kind of mysterious, but I don't know how to explain that book very well without spoiling too much about it. I don't know. Just go through the Goodreads reviews and see what is going to be for you. It definitely wasn't my favorite read of the month, so yeah, just keep that in mind. The next book that I picked up, I hadn't researched when I picked it up. It turned out that it's the second book off of a series that I hadn't read yet, so I didn't read the first book, but that was quite okay because it can definitely be read as a standalone. It's called Riffs and Refrains by Devney. I'm quite familiar with this author's works. I've read quite a few of them and I really enjoy her writing style. I love all of the books that I've read by her, so I was really intrigued by this story because the main character is a female drummer. So it's a rock star romance, and I love when a rock star romance has a rock star who is not a man. So I was really, really interested by this story. And the premise of the book also let me know that it's going to be a second chance romance, which is one of my favorite tropes. So I was already in for a 4 or a 5-star read, in my opinion. And I did rate it, I think, like 4.5 stars, I believe, or 5 stars on Goodreads. The book is about Quinn, I believe her name is. She is the drummer of the band, and she has left her hometown for good for quite some years, but because of a family tragedy, she needs to revisit her hometown, and that's where she gets picked up by, I think his name is Graham, who is the guy she left behind when she left to look for her fame and fortune with the band. And he is holding quite a bit of a grudge because of the way that she left him, and they have such an amazing chemistry together. I love their story. And yeah, I don't want to tell you too much about it. Just bear in mind it's a rockstar romance, second chance romance with quite a bit of angst between the two main characters. So that really worked for me. And like I mentioned, I love the author's writing style. So it was a definite win, in my opinion. The next story I'm going to talk about, I'm not ashamed to say I was really influenced by everyone on BookTube because everyone seems to have read this book in the past couple of months. I'm really basic in that way. I'm really easily influenced to pick up a hype book because I really want to know whether it's worth the hype or not. I'm talking about Lauren Asher's The Fine Print. This book is a part of a series. It's going to be revolving around 3 brothers, and the first book is about the youngest brother, whose name is Rowan. He basically at the beginning of the story we find out that the 3 brothers will get their inheritance because their grandfather has recently passed away, but they will only get the inheritance if each of them completes a very specific set of conditions within the will. So Rowan is going to be put in charge of the family's theme park, which is a kind of a Disneyland styled theme park, and I absolutely love that part of the story because I've never read a book which involves a theme park, and that absolutely won me over, that aspect. And we have Rowan, who is an absolute grump, and because of things that have happened in the past in his family, he has become very cynical and very, very grumpy, while his love interest, Zara, who works at the theme park and is an absolute sunshine. She's quite the opposite of Rowan, and she has such amazing creative ideas to kind of bring some stuff back to life within the theme park, and he's very intrigued by that. We have quite a bit of tropes which are worked into this story. We have opposites attract, we have a bit of enemies to lovers, we have grumpy sunshine, we have a workplace romance. Yeah, quite a few tropes which are worked into this book. So everything worked for me. And I also absolutely loved the storyline of Zara's sister, who has Down syndrome, and the way that she was worked into the story and the positive ray of sunshine that just was brought into the story because of her character and the influence that she had on Rowan as well just totally worked for me. Yeah, I can't recommend this book enough. I'm definitely going to continue on with the series. The second book came out recently, I think, so I'm going to be picking it up sometime soon, and the third book as well. So yeah, I can't wait to read, to continue on with the series, and I hope you pick this one up as well. The next book I read is called Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score, and I have to say that this book had the potential of becoming one of my all-time favorites, but unfortunately it missed a very important mark in the end, so I didn't give it a full 5 stars. I gave it 4.5 stars. But I really, really loved it. I really recommend this book. If you pick up any book from my recommendations, I really do recommend this one because it was such a fun, engaging, entertaining read, and I basically flew through it because it was just so much fun. The book is about Naomi, who is a twin, and her sister Tina. She has called her to ask for help because she's in some kind of a jam. So Naomi runs straight to this kind of a small town to. It had a very funny name. Was it a Knock 'em Out? I think that the town is called Knock 'em Out. So she runs to the small town to help her sister out. She goes into this cafe and she sees a mugshot of her sisters in this cafe, where she encounters a lot of animosity towards herself because everyone thinks that she's Tina, and she tries to explain that she's not. So we have a lot of funny, banter-filled situations, awkward situations, interesting situations because of the whole twin sister aspect. And at the beginning of the book, there is this guy, Knox, who comes to this cafe to try to remove Naomi from the cafe, thinking that she is Tina. But yeah, they get into it. They really argue a lot and they have a lot of banter with each other, and they get off on a really bad footing. So they have this kind of an enemies to lovers aspect already from the start. There is a very mad attraction between them, so the chemistry between them is off the charts. And we have opposites attract, we have kind of a grumpy sunshine situation because Knox is an absolute grump and Naomi is an absolute sunshine. And a lot of things happen within this book. There's just so much going on within this book, but it's absolutely hilarious and endearing at times. What didn't work for me in the end is that we really didn't get a confrontation between Naomi and Tina about what is happening and what happened and what Tina did. And that is the thing that really, if it would have been wrapped up a little bit better, I would have appreciated the story more. But I did really love it with my whole heart, and I'll probably be doing a reread sometime when I'm in a slump and I need a bit of a fun read, to cleanse my palate or whatever. So yeah, I definitely do recommend this book. It's such a fun read, and I really need to pick up more books from this author's backlist because if this is her writing style, I definitely think I'm going to enjoy more of her works. Next up, I read One Italian Summer by Rebecca Serle. I picked this book up because it's situated in Positano in Italy, which is a place that I dearly love with my whole heart. I've visited before and I absolutely love the Amalfi Coast and all of the places that are very accurately and picturesquely described within this book. So I did love that aspect of the book. But for some reason, I really thought that this was going to be a romance, and it is definitely not a romance, which kind of left me feeling down for a bit of the time when I read it, because the book is about Katie, who lost her mother. They were supposed to take this trip together to Positano, but because her mother passed away just before they took the trip, she decided to go by herself. And just before she went, she actually told her husband that she doesn't know whether she wants to stay married to him. She basically describes at the beginning of the book that she believes that her mother has always been the love of her life, and that she doesn't know whether she wants to continue on living with a person knowing that he's not her biggest priority. And yeah, she goes on this trip to try to, I don't know, go through her grieving period and do all the things that her mother did when she was young, because her mother visited Positano before. And yeah, there were a lot of things that I did appreciate about this book, but it was really on the heavy side. It was filled with a lot of grief, depression, and I don't know whether I valued the way that this character was dealing with her grief. I do understand that everyone deals with grief in very specific and individual ways, but her way was really almost self-destructive. And yeah, I did appreciate some things about the story, but I didn't love it. So I gave it 3 stars. I do recommend it if you're looking for a bit of a more philosophical read about relationships between mother and daughter, about maybe doubts within a marriage, and how people overcome feelings of grief or deal with grief in general. So if you're interested in that aspect, definitely pick this book up, but do bear in mind that it has some really heavy topics dealing within it. Next up, I picked up a book which is called Better Than the Movies by, I don't know, what's her name? Lynn Painter. I'm sorry, I had to look at my laptop to see what her name was. It's a young adult romance, and it was quite cute, I have to say. And it is a book which revolves around a girl. Her name is Liz. She has always wanted to have this movie kind of romance, this absolute fairy tale type of relationship and love with someone, but she has never found the person to be in a relationship with during her high school years. And that's where the story picks up, when this guy that she used to know, I think his name was Max, he was a childhood friend of hers, but he moved away, and then now he moves back to their hometown. And she has this idea that he's always been the person that she was supposed to be with. She kind of fixates on him being her prom date, and working towards kind of piquing his interest in her, so he kind of asks her out. But she kind of doesn't know how to approach the situation, so she enlists the help of Wes, who is her next door neighbor. She kind of has this animosity towards Wes. She kind of views him as some kind of an enemy, which I didn't really get within the book. I didn't understand why she was so hostile in some situations towards him. And he is just such an amazing cinnamon roll type of hero. That's why I really didn't get why she was so hostile towards him. And yeah, we do get hints that he has feelings towards her, and him trying to help her get the other guy's attention. I think that his idea was always to kind of try to pique her interest in him instead. So we have that type of situation going on. I did appreciate how they tried, or the author tried to go about the situation. I did appreciate the cuteness of the story, but yeah, the aloofness of the heroine kind of got on my nerves at some points in the book, so I didn't appreciate it too much, and I gave it 3 stars. It wasn't a bad read. It was kind of an okay young adult romance, and yeah, not very memorable. to be honest. So yeah, just look it up and see whether it's going to be for you. Next up, I'm going to talk about The Player by Contreras. I've read books by Contreras before. Some I've loved, some not so much, but I thought that this was going to be kind of a quick, steamy read, so I decided to pick it up. It wasn't bad, it wasn't good, it was just average in my opinion. It's about this girl, I don't remember her name, so you see it's not very memorable. It's about this girl who is getting kicked out of her apartment that she rents, and they have this kind of a meeting because a lot of the people who are being kicked out, they're kind of being kicked out at the last moment. So they have this meeting with the developers, and that's where she meets the main character. What was his name? He's some kind of a royalty in England, but he's also a soccer player, which kind of didn't make sense to me at all. But anyway, he is one of the people who is with the developers, and he immediately has an attraction to her. He kind of pursues her already from the start, but she's not very interested because she's kind of pissed off about the whole situation. But he decides that because he's very interested in her, he's going to help her out with her situation, and that's where they kind of start meeting and having interactions with each other, and he tries to prove that he's not the snob that she thinks that he is. And it was just an average, steamy story, in my opinion. It was nothing to write home about, and yeah, just an okay book, 3-star read. The last 2 books that I read within the month were 2 which I already discussed in my previous video, in my reading vlog. It's not a reading vlog, it's a vlog about my opinion about the books. The books are by Jennifer L. Armentrout. The first one is the prequel to the Blood and Ash series, which is called The Shadow and the Ember. The second one is the 4th book within the Blood and Ash series, which is called The War of Two Queens. I absolutely love both of the stories. I mean, I love the Blood and Ash universe, world, whatever you want to call it. And I mentioned in my reading vlog, if you've seen it, that the Blood and Ash series were the first fantasy romance books that I ever picked up. So I think because they got me so intrigued within this genre, they're always going to hold a very special place in my heart, and the main characters are ones which I adore absolutely. Cass and Kieran and Poppy are just really embedded into my brain, and I really want to find out what will happen with them as soon as possible. This series is going to continue on. There's going to be a total of 6 books within the Blood and Ash series, and the Flesh and Fire series, I think it's called. So the prequels, there's going to be another book coming out off of that one as well. So yeah, I'm really invested in the series, and I'm not going to talk about the plot of the stories because if you haven't read them, I don't want to spoil anything for you, and I definitely do recommend picking them up, even though it is a bit of an investment in time because all of the books are quite chunky, but they read really quickly, in my opinion. Only the last book, The War of Two Queens, I kind of had a pacing issue with it, but for the rest, I just flew through them. I found them very engaging, and the world building is absolutely superb in my opinion, so I definitely recommend them. That's a wrap for my March wrap up. I totally enjoyed talking about the 10 books that I read in the previous month. I hope that you find books which you want to add to your TBR as well, or if you've read any of the books that I mentioned, please leave your opinions on them below or just DM me on Instagram as well. By the way, follow me on Instagram, subscribe to my channel, like my video, and I hope to see you very, very soon. Have a wonderful, marvelous day. Take care and